Welcome back. Telling your kids to get off their phones is likely a familiar refrain in your house right now. But the reality is, we can't monitor every single thing that our children are doing online. So, here was some insight now is youth and family therapist Tanya De Silva. Welcome back to the show, Tanya.
Nice to see you.
Thanks for being here, Tanya. We know that social media has an impact on all of our moods, but you say it's particularly striking among our young people and teens. How so?
So we honestly see a positive in this as well. So for most of our kids, it's the only way that they can stay connected. But we also work with a lot of kids who have anxiety or some type of mood disorder. And the stats say that 1 in 3 kids by the age of 18 will have a diagnosis. So the way that we're seeing it for our kids kind of varies, where for some of them, when they're online, it's that reminder of what's going on in the world, and that can be scary, or what they're missing out on, especially when those memories pop up from the year before. There's also another side to this. A lot of our kids already were struggling with social connections prior to this. So when they're online, it's that harsh reminder of the fact that they have nobody to connect with and that people are still connecting and they're not.
There have been so many times, Tanya, where I have said to my kids, time to get off a screen. And then I'm quickly reminded because we're in a pandemic, this is how they connect. Having said that, what are you seeing with regards to kids socializing in real life because they are so connected to their screens?
Well, and for us, so at Behavior Matters, we actually run social skill groups. So we teach kids how to socialize. So this is something we see a lot where kids are spending more and more time on devices, but that's affecting their ability to practice like positive body language. So to pick up on social cues, body language, tone, emotions, and even something as simple as practicing eye contact. So we see this with kids, especially when it comes to their interactions without technology. So technology keeps them stimulated. It kind of does part of the socializing for them because they're sending memes, they're playing games. So when you kind of strip that away from them, it's super common that they're telling you they're bored or that they're kind of awkwardly sitting there and they don't know what to do. So we actually have an activity that we do called Round Robin, where they're essentially matched with different kids and they're supposed to, in a short time, learn about them. And sometimes when we do this in the beginning, they literally sit there and they don't know what to say and they're not practicing proper social skills or body language.
I feel like all of these things that you're talking about will be extra exacerbated by the fact that we've got the pandemic, so people are extra distanced. So what kind of an impact could this have on the quality of their friendships going forward?
This really varies depending on the child's awareness. So a lot of kids are hyper aware where they're noticing if they're, excluded from Zoom chats or from group chats or if they're being ignored online. And that does have an effect on their emotions because it's right in their face. But we also have a lot of kids who aren't as socially aware. So they're talking to us about their best friends. But, even in office, sometimes parents will nod their head. And when we talk about it, they're like, you know what? They keep talking about this person as their best friend, but they only play games online. At school, they're playing with their quote unquote other friends, or, we've never seen a play date. So it also creates this illusion of friendship for kids where they might feel like they have stronger friendships than they actually do.
Let's talk about illusion a little bit more because there is this growing popularity of photo filters and self-editing apps, and teens seem to be, posting pictures of themselves that are altered in some sort of way. So Tanya, speak to us about that and how this might impact their self-image.
It's becoming more and more common where kids are posting something online, but not without some type of filter. And the way that we're seeing it is that it's causing us anxiety about, okay, what am I posting online and is it perfectly curated? But then there's a backside to this where now when obviously, we're in isolation, but obviously, there's going to be a point where we return. And when they are exposed to people again, socially face to face, it causes this added level of anxiety about, am I living up to what I'm posting online? So we see this more in females, but with males, it's a different kind of impact where, again, in our groups, we always have this conversation and boys typically are like, well, I don't like, filters. I don't like when things are fake. And then they'll pull up accounts of people that they find attractive. And right away, girls will call out that, well, actually, that's not real. And this is filtered. So I think it's affecting, our desire to live up to an image that is basically unattainable, but also what that image is and what people are expecting. And it's kind of blurring those lines of what's real and what's not.
I'm listening to everything you're saying. I'm sure most parents are thinking, oh my gosh, I just want to take away their devices or like hide them.
Yeah.
And teens are probably listening going like, no, 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 do not touch my stuff. So how involved should parents be when it comes to kids and their screens?
Well, and kids hate when I say this. Like, I always see their faces change when we start having this conversation. But I think parent controls are important, especially for younger kids. So they're developing that risk assessment. So them knowing that you are looking or you could potentially look at what they're doing makes them think twice about what they're posting. I always encourage parents to also friend their kids on social handles and really understand what those social handles are and how to use them. There's always like a follow-up conversation with this, I find, especially with teens, where we also then need to discuss what that interaction is going to be like online so that parents aren't embarrassing their teens or like overstepping. So definitely kind of taking a front seat and being involved, but having it as an open dialogue where everyone feels comfortable in terms of the involvement.
Hmm. What if parents see their kids posting something that they don't approve of? What is the best way to deal with that?
So typically parents go to a state of fear and wanting to take back control. So we always hear parents be like, I took away their phones, I took away their gaming system. And that's because, again, you want to protect your kids. But what happens when we do that is we forget that kids are in a state where they're figuring out who they are. They're figuring out how to operate online, the consequences of things. So when we do that, we typically make them feel shame. We also make them feel like, they can't come to us or they don't want to come to us. So we always tell parents to take a breath and approach them in a way where it's like, I saw this. This is how I feel about it. This is my worries or my concerns. What do you think? And have that open dialogue. Obviously, this works with some kids. With other kids, they're like, I don't care what you're saying, or I don't see it that way. So we always kind of encourage families to have rules in terms of what is allowed and what's not allowed on social media. So then you can kind of refer back to, well, this was a non-negotiable, and you can put the choice back on them, where it's like you can choose to either, follow the rules that we had set out, or you can choose not to, but there's going to be a consequence for that where either your time's limited or maybe you're not on that platform anymore. So it essentially makes them make the choice, and it shows them that they have choice in what they're doing, but also that there's consequences in the choices that they make.
In keeping with that, how can we give kids, especially as they get older, their own tools that they can use so that they learn to use social media in a way that is actually gives them more responsibility, but also is beneficial for their mental health?
There's 4 standard ones that we typically go to. So we always do a reality check. So is the information that we're exposed to real? Are the images that we're looking at real? That typically helps, but there's always an emotional reaction to what we're seeing too. So then we do a feeling check where, okay, what you were exposed to, how does that make you feel? And that typically brings up a lot of stuff for kids as well. So that essentially leads into the third step where we start talking about, how can you take back control over your online experience? So how can you audit, your social handles and decide who you don't want to follow anymore, who you don't want to engage with anymore? I mean, even as adults, what we engage with changes. I find that I'm following and unfollowing different things as I grow. So we play back into that. And then we kind of finish off with always putting a really strong importance on making sure that there's still value offline, and that our friendships and our value isn't just found online.
Tanya, we appreciate your insight. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for having me.
If you'd like a recap of any of these tips, head to our website. We're back right after this.